Hello from the Hoboken Historical Museum. We're streaming live to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. This is Hoboken Talks, where on Thursday night, we talk about Hoboken. It's been about a year, and there's been a real nice lineup of fantastic guests from all different walks of life who gathered here in this place to talk about the one thing we have in common, the love of this beautiful, crazy, insane town we all live in. My name is Mark Singleton, and I'm here tonight with my guest, my good friend, Rosanna Lucignano. So please, during our conversation tonight, if you want to chat with us, you can put your comments on Facebook and YouTube. We'll do our best to respond in real time. YouTube is kind of our home base, so if you want to see this video or any of the other videos from previous nights, just look on Facebook. That's the place to be. So again, tonight we have joining us Rosanna Lucignano.
Oh, excuse me.
That's all right. Hey, Rosanna.
Hey, Mark.
How are you?
Great. I'm great, thanks.
Good, good. I got to tell you, truth be told, I still can't have to call her Rosanna Altamar because that's how I knew her. I've known Rosanna for really 50 years now, believe it or not, since a little bit after I came to Hoboken in 1970. We've been friends, over all of that time. So it's a real pleasure to have Rosanna with us today. And Rosanna is, we share a lot in common. One of the things we share in common is that we both live still about 200 yards from the houses that we grew up in. So Rosanna, welcome. Great to have you here.
Oh my God, it's such an honor to be here and really a privilege to be able to, share a little bit about my story and about like the amazing journey of growing up in Hoboken, being born and raised, and my children being born and raised here, and getting my education here, and just it's my whole life. It's been my whole life, so it's really an honor. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
No, it's good. We also share that. We both raised kids here in town. Your kids are a little bit older than mine, but we really have adult children at this point. So that's an amazing thing. So even though we've known each other for a long time and we've been friends for a long time, I realize our experiences were probably quite different. So I'm interested to learn some new things about you tonight too,
and I about you as well.
So that's great. So tell us, what was it like for you growing up in Hoboken?
First of all, like behind me is a photograph I took. So this is the view from outside of my window of my apartment. I live on 8th and Washington, where I was born. My dad bought this property back in 1961, and bought the laundromat, so the building and the laundromat, for the huge price of $23,000.
Nice, good investment.
So it's a commercial property with 3 apartments, and I live in one of them. When I was born, we lived on the first floor. I now live in an apartment by myself that I lived with growing up. My 2 parents, my sister, and my 2 brothers. So 6 of us lived in the apartment that now, I barely have any room for my stuff. So life was quite, different then. And the laundromat, my dad worked in a laundromat. He was a actual diesel truck mechanic.
Okay.
He came here from Italy. His dad actually was a longshoreman on the waterfront, and he was killed in a machine accident down on the pier, down on the piers. My grandparents were born in Italy. And they sent their children over. There were 6 of them. They sent them over one at a time.
Yep.
And my dad came. My dad was the oldest, and he came first. And because he was a trained diesel engine mechanic, because he worked for Fiat over there, he started working for a company called Gratali Brothers down on where the coffee company is on Observer Highway now.
Yep, down in Marin Boulevard.
Yep.
Yep.
So he did that, and opened and ran this laundromat where I spent most of my childhood. In the laundromat.
That was a pretty common experience, I think, especially for Italian immigrants, that they send members of their family, little by little to come over. I know that was true with some of my friends as well. Did you think of yourself as an Italian growing up? I mean, how much of a part of it was ethnic identity of your childhood?
All of my cousins. So there were I have a lot of cousins who were all around the same age, and they all speak Italian. We do not. My parents would speak Italian in the house, but so that we wouldn't understand what they were saying. But I slowly, figured out that it was usually me, and I was usually in trouble. And it was usually, what are we going to do with her, type of thing. And But no, I think my dad really wanted us to be more Americanized, you know. They had cousins here. My grandfather on my dad's side had cousins here that were like successful. They lived the American dream. And so when my grandfather came here and saw the American dream, he wanted that too. So when my father came here, you know, it was very much wanted the American dream.
Sure.
And so
Sure.
and so it was more about, you know, being American at that time. My mother was born in Hoboken,
Okay.
and they met here and they got married on the 4th of July in 1954. So we're a family of holidays. I was born like on Thanksgiving. My sister was born on Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
My brother was born on Good Friday. My brother Richie, who passed away, was born on 7/11, July 11th.
That's crazy.
So
That's my mom's birthday as well. By
is
the way.
that right?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. I realized also really thinking about this and preparing, I never met your mother once. Your father's famous. Everyone knows your father from the laundromat and from other places. I spent a lot of time around your father. I can't remember ever meeting your mom.
So there's a kind of an interesting story about that. My Aunt Millie, my mother's sister, never got married or had children. So I always had like a second mother. So I was always like, go to church with Aunt Millie or go to Weight Watchers meeting with Aunt Millie or go do something. And Aunt Millie was great because of course she had no children. If she had she would buy ice cream and there would be sprinkles. So like that was cool, like to have sprinkles.
Sure.
At that time, Tang was around. So Tang, the sugar orange drink thing. So when you went to Aunt Millie's house, like she had the maraschino cherries, like which wouldn't last 5 minutes in our house with 4 kids, right? So it was kind of cool being with Aunt Millie because she had the good stuff. So Aunt Millie would come and give Richie a break or my father a break in the laundromat. So for years, everybody thought Aunt Millie was my mother.
Yeah.
So because they never saw my mother, because my mother was, home raising kids, taking care of my father, who, had a passion for, property in Hoboken and working. And he used to like to go fishing. He would drive all the way down the shore to fish for like an hour or two and then drive all the way back. So very much like a lover of the sea. For sure, because he was born in Bari, Italy, in Molfetta, which was right on the Adriatic Sea.
Yeah.
So it's funny, he ended up in Hoboken, which was by the water here, the river, and then ended up getting a house down the shore, which is a block from the ocean there. So like my father was very connected to the sea. Back in Italy, his dad had a boat, a fishing boat. So very connected to that. So nobody ever saw my mother because my mother was home raising 4 kids, taking care of my father, who was a busy man and he had his hands in everything. And but he was super loving, and I have so many memories of he would come home and he would bring her flowers, or he would bring her little pieces of jewelry, and he would hug her and he would sing to her, and they had such a beautiful, I have such great memories of my parents, the love that they had for each other. That was beautiful.
There they are. Look at that picture.
That's them. Yeah. So it's a little bit old, but that was 1954. My dad was so handsome, and my mother so beautiful.
I can see both of your brothers in his face for sure.
Yeah.
And I can see you and Marissa.
Yeah, they were just beautiful.
Yeah.
They were beautiful people. They were happy people.
Yeah. One of the pictures you have, speaking of the boats, one of the pictures looked like you were in front of a fishing boat. You and your sister. We'll get to it. I'll show you later. We'll see you later on. But yeah, it's very interesting because that was a much more traditional, childhood than I had growing up. But it's great. Very interesting.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
It was really good.
So did you live in the Washington Street building when you were little?
Yes, on the first floor. So like I said, there were 4 of us. And so when we would drive my mother crazy, she'd say, go downstairs by your father. And then, we would go downstairs and he would make us sweep. We always had a sweep. We were the best sweepers. We did was sweep. And then we would clean the glass on the dryers. We always were working. There was old fashioned soda machines where he would open it up and it was like, oh, is that what the inside of the soda machine looks like?
Yeah.
Wow. And so we would have to load the soda machine. And then we would start pushing the wagons around, the clothes wagons. And then I would climb in one, and then we would play go-karts in there, and then fall over and a lot of things. And he'd say, go upstairs by your mother. And then we basically got sent up and down the stairs all day long, which was totally cool. I mean, so there are no kids on the block now.
Right.
but there were like 40 kids on the block.
Yeah.
And my dad on Saturday night, we would all line up outside the laundromat, and he would open up the soda machine, and everybody can go in there and pull their own, get their own Yoo-hoo. I think pretty much was just Yoo-hoo and Coca-Cola at that time.
I love you.
I think that was about it, and it was great. And we would all sit on the stoop and hang out, and chalk on the you could ride your bike around in circles, but never to the corner and back, which was only about like 50 yards. So yeah, very tight knit, close community. Lots and lots of kids. Yeah, grew up there, still live there. It's pretty amazing.
Well, the laundromat was a real social place, right? I mean, people gathered there, people went there all the time. It's the kind of business that we had back in those days, that were real cultural centers, so to speak. And you got to grow up there. I was telling Rosanna earlier that my dad used to do his laundry there, and so our fathers used to Sunday afternoon would chat as he did laundry.
And such different people they were.
Such different people they were, for sure. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Mark's dad was a New Yorker, and my dad was, was not at all.
But I do remember your dad being a very gentle, very nice man. He at least, from to us on the outside, he was always very friendly. Very, very nice. He was.
Lots of people have nice things to say about him. And he was there all the time, and he was the neighborhood, he was the neighborhood guy. And then, when he became ill, he actually had an aneurysm rupture in his abdomen, and he became paralyzed from the waist down. And my brother Richie took over the business, and Richie also took over doing the same, had the same type of, personality. Everybody loved Richie. It was people would come to the laundromat to do their laundry with their children.
Oh yeah.
And Richie would watch their kids while they were doing their laundry. And then people would come with their dogs, and Richie would hang out, and the dogs would sit on Richie's lap, and so people, and when Richie passed away just a couple of years ago from COVID, we got letters from people saying that 3 or 4 generations of their family, their grandparents lived in Hoboken, their parents were born there, they were born there, their children used to go to laundromats. So, a lot of generations of families. We've had the business for almost 54 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of generations going in and out.
And Richie really did pick up right where your father left off too. He became the real heart of that place. And I know people that I swear would go to do their laundry there just to hang out with Richie. Even they probably had laundries in their homes, but they would just go there to hang out with Richie. He was that kind of a guy.
I would go in sometime and I'd say, why are you still open? Like it's past 8 o'clock or past 9 o'clock. And he'd say, because this lady put her laundry in and she's at the bar in the corner and she's drunk. And I keep telling her she's got to come in and get her laundry, because the bar was there. So he would literally walk to the corner and say to people, your laundry's done. Come and put it in the dryer. So Richie was everybody's favorite.
But there was only one time Richie closed the laundromat early, when he had to go to
Yankee game.
That's right. When he had a Yankee game, he'd close early because he had to get on the train.
Yep. So he always had his flags in the front. That all the championships, the Yankee championships, and then he was a Giant fan, and like he would get, and my children were like Met fans growing up, and I remember when my son was like 9 years old, they were like, Richie got into an argument with my son. I'm like, Rich, he's 9.
Yeah, no,
like,
Richie
I
didn't
know
play
you love
with
the Yankees, but he's 9. So yeah, you don't play with that. So he always collected a lot of memorabilia and all the jackets. Like basically always wore a Yankee logo. Yeah, he was amazing. He was amazing. He was a great kid.
So growing up, did you go to school at Brant School? That's where we met, of course, in Brant. But did you go there the whole time from kindergarten on?
To 9th grade.
Yeah, I know.
I was the star of my 9th grade play.
I was in it too, but she was the star.
I felt like I was made to believe I was the star. I was Anne Margaret. We were doing like different Broadway. Was it
different.
It was the Brant Follies, I think it was
just
called.
different songs.
And I was in the scene where I was Anne Margaret throwing Roger Daltrey through the mirror.
From Tommy the Who. Yeah.
And I had on a jumpsuit with a little halter jacket. And my mother said to me, do not take that halter jacket off. And of course I did. And when I came out with it out, I could hear my father up in the balcony gasp. I'll never forget that. And but yeah, that was Yeah, that was great. We had Mr. Cassessa there. He was
Sure.
amazing. He's
I still see him, by the way.
I was driving by and I saw him and I beeped it, but what a guy, and changed, one of the many teachers that, I have to say in Hoboken, in my lifetime that really, changed my life and the course of the choices that I made, and, help you, take ownership of who you are and where you're from, and
Yep.
and the importance of family and importance of hard work. And so he was cool, very creative, and very caring and loving. Yes, made me feel like I was a star for sure.
We had some good teachers in Brand School for sure. I mean, there were some
Mr.
teachers.
Hildeman,
Mr. Hildeman
Mr.
had a big effect
Martin.
on my life. Yep.
Yep.
Benny Martin.
Yep. So yeah, kindergarten to ninth grade, 10 years.
Yeah.
When I was in eighth grade, they wanted to put me in Sacred Heart for 9, 10, 11, and 12 because that was the high school years. My sister was already in Sacred Heart. She's a year ahead of me. And I was like, oh, absolutely not. I'm all these years with these kids from kindergarten. I'm graduating with them.
Right.
And so I did. And then,
We grew up during that 3-year high school period where you went to junior high till 9th grade, and then you had 3 years of high school.
Right. Now it's different. Now you go 9, 10, 11, 12. So
Yeah.
they put me into Sacred Heart, which was right across the street from my house.
Yeah.
All girls Catholic high school. Couldn't get away with a lot when Daddy was living right across the street. So I was, go to school, come home, hang out outside, go to the park. We spent a lot of time in the park.
Legion Park. Yeah. I don't know if you had this experience, but I had this experience when my kids were young of bringing them to a Legion Park where we spent all of our time. And it was just sort of this weird sort of a time warp thing. I have my little children in Legion Park, and I have so many memories of Elysian Park, and I've told my kids about it. So now when I walk through the park with my 20-year-old daughter and I start to tell a story, she's like, Dad, I know. She's like, I know that's where you had your first kiss. And I know that's where you used to play basketball. And I know all these things. And she tells me to shut up.
Well, my son now lives right there on Castle Point. So he lives 2 doors down from the park. And I have very vivid early memories of him in the park when he was little, maybe my oldest son, Nicholas, a boy would come and take the ball away, and he would look at, and I would look at him, he would look at me, and I'd be like, oh, let him play with the ball, and Nick was always very mild. He still is very mild mannered. So I have a lot of, and of course the park is different now because there were no dog runs. So we started at one point taking away the swings.
There weren't that many dogs either,
runs.
by the way.
No, there were no dogs. And I do remember sitting outside the laundromat with Nick and Damien, my younger son, and a guy walking by and basically sideswiping my son with his briefcase to bend down and pet the dog. And I was like, so there was definitely a shift. We didn't have dog runs, and there were many, many more swings, and the parks were much more oriented towards the kids. We even had a little pool in the 4th Street Park by the Little League field.
Yeah.
I actually was in that pool at one point.
But if truth be told, we spent a lot of time in Elysian Park. This was the 70s, of course. So we spent a lot of time in Elysian Park, probably not playing on the swings, if you know what I mean.
No. I was
But
lucky.
it was the 70s.
I was lucky because my dad knew all the police officers. And so when Wally was, walked the beat guy. When Wally came by, he would walk by and he would say to my sister and I, go home. And then we would beeline it out of there. And then the rest of them had to, dump the beer or whatever they had. Those were fun days. But, still to this day, I mean, listen, the Hoboken waterfront has been just, it's been my backyard for all of my life, and it's a gift every day.
I talked to, when I talked to Rand that first time, we talked about back in the 70s when those abandoned buildings were down there. That was like our little world. We grew up on the waterfront in these old abandoned buildings along the piers, and it was still cobblestone street and a railroad track that went down River Road. And
Before
we had
it
that
became
place to
Sinatra
ourselves.
Drive.
Yeah, well,
it was
long before. I still can't call it
River
Sinatra.
Road. Me either.
Is that when you said Lord of the Flies?
Yeah, it was like Lord of the Flies. It was like our own little world. We just, we ran the place, and you had to sneak through a fence to get to it. And None of our parents.
Well,
would
it was
come
now
around.
where we are right now in this museum was old abandoned vacant buildings, and we would hang out in them. That's where we would meet. And there would be like staircases with no stairs, so we would have to like kind of climb up on the side, and then we'd be up there. This is amazing. It was so cool.
Yeah, a lot of time on the waterfront. It was beautiful. It was a great place to grow up. Did you? I mean, you mentioned having 40 kids on the block, and I certainly had that experience as well. I mean, there were just so many kids on every block. It was like I came from the suburbs, you know, and when we moved here in 1970s, like I had 40 friends in one day. It was amazing. And, you know, you were one of them. You were one of the kids from the neighborhood. So it was great. And I loved growing up in Hoboken. I thought it was a great place to grow
It
up.
is a great place. It is a great place.
Yeah.
For sure. For me, it's still a great place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for sure.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people like to talk about how Hoboken's changed, but there's also a lot that stayed the same. You know what I mean? It's still a great place to live. I still enjoy. I'm so happy my children got to grow up here like I did, and I know you feel the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm lucky. My kids are still here, so you know, it's nice to have them just a few blocks away.
Yeah.
My brother lives 1 block away that way. My sister and my son live 2 blocks that way. My other son lives 3 or 4 blocks
Where
that
did
way.
Aunt Millie live?
A 420 Grand.
Oh yeah.
And there's a firehouse in the middle of that block, and they would wrap us in a towel when they opened up the sprinklers, and we could go dance around in the sprinklers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I remember Aunt Millie all right, for sure. Yeah. You had a picture of her somewhere in one of our pictures too, didn't you?
I don't know. I don't think I have a picture of it. I don't think there was a picture of
sorry.
Aunt Millie.
Yeah, show some pictures, Rand. See what we have in there. I love this picture because that material of that dress is so 1969.
And it's so polyester, and it was also made by my mother. So my sister and I were 18 months apart. My mother worked before she got married, she was a seamstress. She worked in a factory. She and Aunt Millie was the floor lady. She was in charge, Aunt Millie. But my mother made clothes. She taught me how to sew. I know how to sew, and
that was such
my
a big
mother made
business.
that was polyester. It makes me itchy looking at it.
Yeah.
But my sister and I were a year and a half apart, so they made 2 outfits at the same time. So my sister and I dressed alike all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how old I was there. What would you say? That was a school picture, though.
Yeah. But you know, that's a big part of Hoboken's history too. All the women that would work in the coat factories and do piecework, and you know, even from their homes, some of them did piecework.
Which they were all big condo buildings now. They were. It was called Jay's Factory, and it was.
Dandy Belt was down there. A bunch of
yes, on Second and Grand.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
I remember going there and thinking it was the coolest thing. There were a million sewing machines, and
Yeah.
it was cool. It was very cool. Very, very cool.
Probably not the greatest job in the world.
No,
Can I tell you?
no.
Yeah.
But we always had beautiful clothes.
Yeah, I like that one. And there's another. I see that you and Marissa did dress alike a lot.
Yes. I don't know if she appreciated that.
So this is a picture. I can see it's on 8th and Washington because right out the window is 809 Washington.
Yeah.
And I asked Rosanna. I said, first of all, why are you sanding the floors? And second of all, what happened to the radiator? You can see it's been missing in the back there. And tell me.
So that's Richie there. And my dad sanded all the floors. So my dad did everything. When a machine would break down a laundromat, my father would fix it. My father did everything, and he taught us all to do everything.
Yeah.
You know, my dad would put me under the car and show me how to change the oil. I mean, my dad taught us, you know, the value of learning how to do things yourself. And, you know, I distinctly remember, you know, many times of my dad telling me that if you could do it yourself, don't ask anybody to do things for you that you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
And I pretty much grew up that way. But so my dad said we still have the same wood floors, and the radiator was disconnected because my father was a perfectionist, and he would not sand the floors around the radiator. Of course not. So we took the radiator off too. And then, of course, I remember that machine like crazy. It had a giant steel wool underneath it. And it weighed 1,000 pounds. I don't even know how, you know, but yes, so that was Richie playing with it. I'm sure it wasn't on. I'm sure we were just playing with it, but that thing was heavy. And that's my sister and I.
Yep.
My sister Marissa.
It's a good picture.
Yeah, it's great.
This is the one I wanted to ask you about. So first of all, your parents obviously like to dress you like old men and women. I love Anthony there with his fedora. That's a great shot. But what is that 630 Hoboken star sign behind you? It looks like a fishing boat because
I don't know what that is, and I don't know. It's a good question.
Could be the palace. Could be the
Oh.
Palace fishing boat.
Yeah, I don't know.
Something star.
Yeah.
Like you mean like I don't know, like a boat. I mean, I see the ship in the background.
Yeah,
So
but see, there's also one of
yes.
those, what do they call them, life preservers
yes,
there. So anyway, that's
I
a
don't
great
know.
picture.
But yeah, that was a.
Your dad might have been fishing and you went to go pick him up.
I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it was cool. We had so much fun growing up. When I was in high school, I used to like to wear a lot of makeup, and I would spend a lot of time in the bathroom putting makeup on. And then as soon as I came out of the bathroom, I would get jumped by my sister and brother. They would smear my makeup all over, and I'd be screaming, crying, and So it was great having older siblings. Richie was the kind soul. Richie wouldn't do that. Richie would be like, stop. And we had some good times with Richie, for sure.
Yeah.
We're very close, very close.
This was pre-Richie. Richie was just very young.
Yeah, Richie was little. Yeah, he's probably sitting in a carriage somewhere.
Yeah, that's a good one. And there looks like Bossy Marissa driving you around somewhere.
I always tried to tag along. Sure, at some point she probably was like, get rid of, I remember like my children are 4 years apart, and Nick would want to go somewhere, and Damien was 4 years younger, and Nick was, Nick's 14 and Damien's like 10. And so I'm like, but my sister and I were a year and a half apart. So we, if Marissa was going, I was going too. Otherwise, there was going to be a big tantrum. So they'd be like, Marissa, take your sister.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we, and I think that was a Richie's,
Fire truck?
no, it couldn't have been. It's too small. It's too small. I'm trying to think of where that fire truck even came from. Probably was. I don't remember having it now. So,
Yeah.
But yes, the typical. My sister and I, as kids, just hanging out in Hoboken.
Nice one. And there you are in the winter.
When there was a lot of snow on Washington Street, and that's right outside. So the post office is still there. That's right outside the post office.
Okay.
So now that you can see the mailbox on, it's more obviously closer to the post office now. But the meters were probably a nickel. And I remember like growing up, we would go to Palisades Amusement Park up in like Fort Lee. And on the way back, my father had a big blue Oldsmobile, a Jetstar 88, and it was big. And,
that's a living room on wheels.
And we would, and we would pray, hold hands and pray in the back for a parking space. Okay, guys, we're going home. Let's all pray for parking, in 1969 or whatever. So when I hear about parking, I'm like, ho hum, because
that's one thing that's never changed in Hoboken.
No, I have to say this definitely is pretty bad now. I mean, it's really bad. But yeah, so that's, just hanging out in Hoboken. I just remember there always being snow, like the snow we had this past weekend. I remember there always being a lot of snow.
Yeah, it feels that way to me
so
too.
Definitely global warming is real.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the laundromat. That's the first time we get to see the laundromat.
Yeah. 10 cents to dry and 25 cents to wash.
Okay.
Yes. And my father put kids through college on that. And yeah.
Well, that is interesting. That's an interesting point. I mean, in those days, somebody who owned a laundromat with 10-cent washers and 25-cent washers and 10-cent dryers raised 4 children, put them through school, and actually eventually bought another house.
Yes. I mean, my dad, paid for my education when I graduated, bought my first car, same with my brother Richie. We went to St. Peter's College in Jersey City. My sister went to NJCU, Jersey City, that they call it Jersey City
State University now.
State, yeah. She was an art major. She's an amazing artist.
She is a very great artist. Yeah.
My brother is, very successful in his own business, the coffee business and water coolers, but big in the coffee business. And right about 1972, I remember I was going to dancing school. So Tracy Everett had the dancing school.
Tracy Everett, of course.
And he's still around. I still see him in the coffee shop. And when I went to grad school, I had to write about my favorite teacher. And I wrote about Tracy Everett, even though I had so many, great teachers, because he was just an amazing force. And I just always remember him. They always say like it's not about like what a teacher does, or what's the expression? It's how they make you feel.
Yeah.
Right. And he just, always let you know that you could do it. I just always got a lot of self-esteem from him. And so we would go to dancing school. I went to dancing school from when I was pretty young, for like a lot of years. And I remember one day my mom saying, come up to the house over here up on Hudson Street. And I had no idea that they bought the house on Hudson Street. And I remember walking in, and this big house, like downstairs, like a basement, and big first floor and a backyard, and then bedrooms upstairs, like with a closet that had, that you could open up and actually walk in. And it was like just the most beautiful house. It's still in my family. So my dad bought that in 1972. My brother lives there. He restored it. He didn't renovate it, like he restored it. And it's just beautiful, and you just, it's just a loving, beautiful, beautiful home to go.
Your father had very good taste in real estate. It's a beautiful house. And, that was 1972. People weren't buying and investing in family homes.
That was $70,000. $70,000, which, at that time, I'm going to guess was a lot of money. So,
it was, definitely.
So, my dad, 7 days a week. And, he put us through college, and we had, we didn't do Disney World or anything like that. We went to the shore, we went to the Poconos, but it wasn't, but it was happy and beautiful. And then up, Hudson Street, was when I was first introduced to frat houses.
Well, okay. There are a few up there.
Yeah, so we lived diagonal to Chi-Phi, and so those were my high school years, and that was interesting. And then I went to college, and I actually did all my studying, even though I went to St. Peter's. I had to pass to the library, and I did all my studying up in Stevens Library. So I spent an enormous amount of time up Stevens from when I was very young. When I used to run when I was in high school, so I ran on the Stevens field, which was beautiful. And it was not as many buildings now. It was a lot of grass, and it was beautiful trees, and it was like the country up there, a block away from my house. So moving up to Hudson Street is a completely different experience. There are no buses. There's no horns beeping. There's none of that. It's a block away, and it's a completely different world. So being that close to Stevens was a great experience. Stevens is so much history there. You want to so much history up there.
So before I forget, was it always called Giant Laundry?
Giant Wash.
It was always called that, right from the beginning.
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay.
Giant Wash.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to sit out there. So this is a nudie.
Okay.
And we only changed that.
That's a lot of spigots, by the way.
We only changed that last year.
Is that right?
Because Richie, the ground floor apartment, which is where we were. I live on the second floor, but on the first floor, I should say, not the ground floor, is the laundromat. Right. The first floor was where I was born and raised, and now I live on the second floor. But Richie lived still lived in the first floor apartment, and that was still his bathroom until he passed away. And then we did some renovations in the building, but it was still there up until just like about a year ago, and it was great. I renovated mine, and I didn't put a bathtub in, and I regret that because I would sit in it every night at this point in my life. But so it was my sister and I, like my poor sister. She couldn't even take a bath without me.
No.
But yeah, that's the old tile and the old.
Well, there's only one bath for 5 of you, right? 6 of you.
Yeah,
so
6 of us.
You had to take turns. Go together. Yeah.
It was good times.
Now you're looking a little bit like the Rosanna I remember.
A little bit older with the long stringy hair. I don't know how I got the bangs, but definitely a Brand School class picture. And I currently am a teacher, and I teach in Brant. And
that's got to be surreal.
Oh, it is. I was sitting in the principal's office this week, and he was over there, and I was sitting over here, and I said to him, I was like, where I'm sitting right now used to be a stool, and Mr. Clyans was the principal. And when I got in trouble, I wouldn't really get in trouble because my father was the owner of the laundromat. All the teachers and all the administrators did their laundry in the laundromat, so they all knew my dad. So I would be in trouble before I got home, because they would drop off their laundry or go pick it up or whatever during the day. And so Mr. Clyans, so instead of getting, I was what my second grade teacher would tell me with her crooked finger, that you're so bold. I was very bold, apparently. It was around this time, I think. I was very bold, and I would sit, and Mr. Klein's had a stool, and you would have to sit on the stool across his desk and be silent. So I spent a lot of time in what is now still the principal's office. So, my principal's like half my age right now. So I'm like, this is very traumatic for me to be here right now. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I walked down, the staircases where I was probably kissing boys in 9th grade or something, up and down, they still have the still marble staircase, and still the stage where I became a star. So yeah, Brand School, it's pretty a big part of my life. It still is, and I love it there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. This is a great Christmas photo, and we were pointing out beforehand, check out the Christmas tree. That was what Christmas trees looked like back in the day.
And the drapes, the long drapes, and the wall-to-wall carpeting. Yeah, I mean, that was perfect. I mean, that picture just is so perfect. It says it all. It says it all. My parents were so loving and cared so much about, like they dressed well and they spoke well. The only cursing that went on was in Italian. And that was, you really had to get somebody mad to hear that. But yeah, my sister and I, again, with the same clothes
outfits
on.
again,
and,
Rosanna.
Richie was the baby. He was sweet, but that's a really beautiful, like a perfect depiction of my life as a child. It was beautiful.
Nice picture. Yeah. And here again, Anthony's birthday, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're all the same age, cousins, and that's my Uncle Vincent, my father's brother, and that's my mom. Holding me, I think. That's my cousin Maria, a little bit older. So we're all still very, very close.
Yeah.
Up until not too long ago, we always had a cousins party every year at somebody's house. So we all get together, and so this is what it was like. Everybody got together for every kid's birthday. That was there still on 8th and Washington, where I live now. I still have those French doors in the bedroom. It's all still the same. I have all the original molding around the ceiling, around the doors, around the floor, same wood floors. So this was Hoboken, your family, all of my family, and I have a cousin that still lives in town, but most of the rest of my cousins moved out. But we're still very close. And but yeah, this is what it was like. On Sunday, we would go to Norna's house. The men would play cards. The women would sit there and talk, and the kids would just wrestle all over the floor and kill each other, which was awesome fun. But yeah, it was very family oriented, very community oriented, very close knit. I'm very lucky that we're still very, very close. Yeah. So yep, same house, same. Yeah.
That's beautiful. All right. Who are these people?
These are my two grandmothers. So the little one is me, and that's my grandmother, Rose Marino. And I was named Rosanna after her. And then my sister was with that's my dad's mother. Her name was Maria. So Marissa was named Marissa after her. And that's right on the corner of 4th and Grand.
Okay.
And Church Towers wasn't built
yet.
Church Towers wasn't built yet. So they watched that be built. And yeah, that's a kind of rare photo because I don't remember my two grandmothers spending a lot of time together. I don't know if it's just because I was small, but my mother had a brother who was killed in the war, and then another brother, my Uncle Nicky, and Aunt Millie, and then my dad on my dad's side had multiple siblings, aunts and uncles. I think there were 6 of them.
Yeah, lots of family.
Yeah, and like lots of kids. We had 4. My mother had 4. There were lots. There are a lot of us, and we still laugh. I mean, my grandmother on my dad's side never spoke English, and I never spoke Italian. And one day my father said, "You're gonna go to Nonna's house and make calzone." And I said, "I don't speak Italian, Dad." And she doesn't speak English. And he was like, "Don't worry." And I'll tell you, I remember this day for the rest of my life. We had a blast. We had so much fun because we were like, she was talking to me with her hands, and I was like, what? again, just happy memories of growing up here in town and being so close.
Yeah.
Such a family oriented community.
Beautiful. Umlands, for those of you who don't know, that is where East LA is today. Umlands Family Restaurant. I remember going there many times, and obviously you did too.
Because it was a block away from Tracy Everett's dancing school, which was on
Right.
top of Sorkin's, which was a stationery store, which I loved. I think I wanted to be a secretary just because I wanted to have so much stationery.
Yeah.
I loved it in there. It smelled like paper in
It
there.
was a good place, yeah.
And so I would come home on my way home from dancing school and stop in Umlands and get a milkshake and sit there. And I'm pretty sure the milkshake person was David Roberts making the milkshakes.
Yeah.
And he was a handsome guy with a fancy car. So that was cool.
Yeah.
So Umlands all the time. It was big. It was also a very big part of my childhood. And like Hoboken had a lot of that,
Yeah.
a lot of that. And
Mm.
I don't remember having steaks and seafood.
No, me neither. I wouldn't have called it a
steaks
seafood
and
restaurant.
seafood. No, but I do remember that they had the great malted milkshakes.
Yeah.
So a lot of time in Umlands.
And a few blocks away from the Blimpie Basin, of course, which is where we
Yes.
spent a lot of our time too. And then Eric's Deli.
Arix, it's a convenience store now on 8th and Washington. But what I love about Arix is that name Arix, that sign was sequins.
Yes, they used to flutter in the
So
wind.
when
yeah.
the wind would blow, and I was like, who had that? Nobody did.
Yeah.
And the two people there was a husband and wife that worked in there that owned it for a long, long time. And I would walk past there to go to Brant School, and I would pop in there and get a sandwich, a bologna sandwich, and a yoo-hoo and whatever they had, a pickle or something. And we would get our lunch for school there, and then just go to school and never pay.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't occur to me because I was young about paying,
Food is free.
like, yeah, it's like, okay, I'm going to have a bologna sandwich and I'll have like a rice pudding and, in a little paper bag going to school with my brother, always walked back and forth to school with Richie. And then came to, learn that they would drop off their laundry at the laundromat. And so they bartered, right? So we got free lunch and they got free laundry. And that went on for years. And it was really, that was Hoboken. Like that was Hoboken. Like people would, there was a lot of trust. So it's still there. It's a little,
Yeah.
A
little different, but it's still there. It's a great place. Yep.
Yeah.
Dottie, and I don't remember the guy's name.
I don't know, it's something with an S.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the doorway, and our very good friend Alice Janice lived there for many years, and Alice and I were great friends. She lived there when she was older, but when she was younger, she lived on 9th and Washington.
Yep.
And her mom still lives
Still
there.
lives there, 919. Yeah.
And very cool. They had a basement, and we were allowed to hang out in the basement. And I was,
cool.
when I was thinking about doing this, I was looking at like music, at like what all the different journeys of music that we listened to growing up from, used to watch the Osmond Brothers, David Cassidy, the Jackson 5. And then over the years, you turn into listening to like Led Zeppelin and Jethro Tull. And, now I'm with the trend, and I do listen to Justin Bieber. I'm sorry. I did say that in public.
You said that out loud, and it's on tape.
But
so,
Justin Bieber's music is good. So so I'm rolling with the times. Like I've been around a long time. But music was a very big, we walked around with a boombox.
We did, yeah. Big part.
And then I had a Walkman with the cassette, and then I had an iPod, and I remember somebody saying to me, "What is that?" And I'm like, "It's an iPod." And they're like, "What's an iPod?" It was a big, heavy one, so yeah, a big part of growing up, music.
Yeah.
And we had the Union Club on 6th and 600 Hudson Street, and so we had local bands. Top Flight with George Malaco was one of them. And so we used to sneak in, because we weren't allowed to sneak into the Union Club and listen to live music.
Yeah.
In Hoboken, which is all condos now.
Yeah.
I'm leaving the slide up because if I remember correctly, the sequins are still there underneath the awning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I
Wow.
love the sequence. Yeah, that was a great sign.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Now, these pictures were taken by a photographer on 9th and Bloomfield. His name is Michael Flanagan. And he took these pictures among many, many others. And all of his collection is part of the museum's permanent collection. So you can see them on their website, I assume. Right, Rand? Some of them?
Yeah, some of them. Yeah.
Some of them, yep. And I love these pictures because this is a picture of our childhood. This is 9th and Bloomfield. This is us hanging out. That's Rosanna on the stoop, and that's Bobby Webb. And I think that's Eddie Velasquez, but I'm not sure. But this to me is the quintessential picture of our childhood in the 70s. Rosanna was the alpha female on our block.
I was
Everybody
cute.
loved
I was
Rosanna.
cute. Look at the hair.
Yeah.
Very cute.
And that's David Yanisey up there.
And my basketball socks and
yeah. And I have to tell you, Rosanna and I we would go out with we went out
we
with
were
each other
boyfriend, girlfriend.
for a very short period of time.
Then I
And
dumped him.
She broke my heart. She dumped me. And I don't know, Rand, do you have a picture of me from those days?
Oh, yeah,
Let me show. Let me show. I just,
I dumped him for that guy with no shirt on.
Yeah,
Nice.
she did. For Bobby Webb up there.
But that was it, sitting on the stoop, and that's all we did. We sat on the stoop.
Look how cute I was.
Oh my
Come on.
God! Yes, I was in love with you. Yes.
Yeah.
You were a musician, so you were good looking, you were intelligent, you were a musician.
Yeah.
I mean, what else could any woman want?
And I do have a letter. I have a Dear John letter you wrote me, but I won't embarrass you by showing that. No.
Not true.
Oh, it's true. I have it. You want to see it, Randy? Put it
Next
up for a
to
minute.
you. No.
I'm gonna go with the guess.
Okay, I do have it.
I have the one that you wrote me right
Oh,
here.
no. That's it. But anyway,
I just a couple weeks ago pulled it out and showed Mark
She did.
that I still have it from back in 76.
76 it was. Yeah, it was 1976 in the summer, and that was a great summer for us. I mean, it was a summer where we were sort
76.
of growing up,
bicentennial.
and that was our life, our whole summer, and it felt like summers went on forever. Talking about time, right? And
Look at the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Bubblegum.
Yeah. Well, when you were talking earlier about how you swept outside, every picture I see from the 70s,
A broom.
litter everywhere, though. We were very
Oh,
bad.
litter.
If you remember, we used to open up a pack of candy and just throw it on the floor.
Absolutely. I was
It's
talking
what
to my
we did.
students about that. My last walking field trip with them, where actually was up here and to the museum and to the waterfront. And I talked to them about that. I'm like, we didn't care. We just
There's a great picture of Benny Tadino's, and the sidewalk is just littered with litter. It's just one of those.
Yeah,
It was
but that's all gum.
Yeah, that's all gum.
All
and
those
other
wax candies that we used to just let melt on the ground.
things.
So.
Oh yeah, we used to play stoop ball off that stoop
Yes.
all the time. Yeah, that's 9th and Bloomfield, and some of the crowd. Not many of them live in town. Bobby Webb still lives in town.
He
believe it or
just
not.
moved.
Yeah.
This past week.
Wow.
He moved down to Toms River.
Yeah. So it's
34 years on Washington Street.
Yeah. I mean, that is one thing about our childhood. We're unusual in that we're still here in town. Most of the people we grew up with have moved on, and part of that is a result of just people move. I mean, I think in the country it's unusual for people to stay in the same location as long as we have. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, I'm here a long time.
Yeah. But those two pictures from Mike Flanagan do remind me of my childhood, and you do look awful cute in those pictures.
I can't.
You really do. All right, who's getting married?
That was me when I got married in 1989 to Dominic.
All right.
I mean, look at the shape of that car. Is that crazy?
That's a real limo.
But, again, Hoboken history there, the waiting room of, the Erie Lackawanna train station. I mean, it's such a beautiful, part of Hoboken history. I mean, even just going down there and watching the ferries coming in and out. And then, of course, the waiting room is still like amazing, in amazing shape when they restored it and painted it. And it does something very nostalgic about being there. So that was where we took our wedding pictures.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was cool.
Beautiful. Oh, and there they all are.
This is my amazing family.
Yep.
Yeah, my brother Richie, such a fun guy, and my awesome brother, who's so loving and supportive.
Yeah.
My sister, and she's loving, caring, amazing, talented. Yeah. When my parents were both ill, my dad was, as I said earlier, paralyzed in a wheelchair. My mother got cancer about 5 years into my father's illness. So they were both in a wheelchair at the same time. And my sister actually moved in. She and her husband actually moved into my parents' house and took care of my parents while, my brother Anthony took care of everything, the property and the cars and all that. And Richie, spent his life, the rest of it, in the laundromat until he retired and closed it up. So, yeah. So, I mean, you would think that through all the crisis and tragedy that usually pulls families apart. I mean, it brought us so close together.
And of course, Richie was a tragic loss. I mean, Richie died of COVID during that time, and that was very difficult for everyone. I know. Yeah. And there's Nancy Trumpner.
Nancy Trumpner. We went to dancing school together. That's how long I know her.
Yeah.
And we're still friends.
Yeah.
We still. She just texted me the other day. So we're friends for a million years too. But again, she lived on 8th and Bloomfield, and we sat on the stoop. Her and Randy London. We're still friends, and and so she's a trip. But again, but again, like Nancy, the hot dog lady, she did what she needed to do, and her son Ricky, my son Nicholas, was friends with Ricky, and but again, we're grown up and we're still friends, and that's what Hoboken did. Hoboken. You go your ways. Who went to college, who went to work, and who got married, and but you're still we're still friends. You still can rely on each other, which is just great. It's just like Mark and I. I mean, it's pretty cool friendship.
Yeah. There's Richie in the laundromat.
Richie in the laundromat with his Yankee shirt. That's a great picture because it really shows like he was such a kind and warm and sensitive and loving and matter of fact kind of guy. And I always loved the laundromat pictures. That was taken, I believe, by Craig Dale. And,
okay, another good photographer.
Craig is amazing. We should get him here to do the Hoboken talks. He was very good friends with Richie. Well, Richie, was very good to people. And Craig took a lot of pictures of Richie.
My friend Bob and Tina still talk about him all the time. Bob and Tina, and they moved out.
He was their best man.
Yeah.
And so they still reach out to us. This was like the week or like within a few weeks of us closing the store. And this is like a very profoundly sad photo because for my family for so many years, to say thank you to the community because the community gave us all a life that, generations of privilege to be loved and cared for by so many people. I mean, when he passed away, I mean, it was during COVID, so we couldn't have anybody come in. But when we walked out to put his casket in the car, I looked over to the corner. We looked over to the corner, and the whole corner was just people and holding up signs. We love Richie, and I mean, the whole community, came out. And it was the same when my parents passed away. I mean, the girls from the bank and near and far came to pay their respects to my family. Again, the part of Hoboken that everybody who's been here as long as us have been privileged to. You don't realize it when you're living through it and you're just living. This is where I live. This is what I do. But now when you look back, this is a substantial amount of gratitude for me having been born and raised here.
Richie was also a special guy. I can't remember ever seeing him angry. He was just always, I'm sure he was, but he was just always very gentle and very, not unlike your father, at least, Yep, that's right. Eric says the respect part is Hoboken. Yep, it's about respect for sure.
It was very, very much, still very much.
And again, you said it before, but I can't imagine you going to work every day in branch school. That would freak me out. I mean, I go there to vote once a year and I have flashbacks for a day and a half. So I don't know how you manage to go there every day and be a teacher, but
funny because I still have books from when I was in 4th grade, and it says on it Rosanna Altamari, room 204. And you know,
You're in 204?
I'm in room
Cool.
204.
Yeah.
So I always, for a long time, I started working in Calabro. After 9/11, I became a substitute, and I started. My son was in Calabro. My oldest son went to St. Peter and Paul, all the way through, and then they both ended up in Hoboken Catholic Academy, and I started teaching at Calabro. Then I went to Wallace for a bunch of years, and from Wallace there was a big push on. We had a partnership with the Hoboken Board of Education had with the museum, so I took advantage of that, and I took my kids up to the museum like weekly. I don't even know how I got away with that. No, but it's educational. I would drag these kids from one end of Hoboken, forgetting that they're like, 10 years old, and just talk to them all about Hoboken history. And we actually wrote a curriculum. When I was teaching 6th grade, we wrote the curriculum for Hoboken history. And this was just last year. So a lot of all these kids were my 4th graders. They're now still in 5th grade. I love them. They come and crash my classroom on a regular basis. Beautiful families, loving families that are really settling in Hoboken. So I bring them to the museum. This was taking a walk down the waterfront last year. It was my 4th graders.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty funny story. This is up on Castle Point. And if you could see the bottom of the picture, the garage door is open. And so I was taking my students on a walking trip. I took them all down here to the waterfront, and I took them up through Stevens and all the way to 4th Street Park and down Washington Street. But when we passed this house, the garage had like the number where you punch in the number to open the garage door. And I said, "Oh, let's see if we can break into this house." And they were like, "No, no, no."
Don't do it, Mrs. Lucignano.
And I was like, "Yeah, let's see if we can get this garage door open." So I pop in the numbers, and the door opens because I knew the number because it was my sister's house. And then there was snacks and water, and so they had no idea. They thought I like broke into the house, and we just had a ball, and we spent a lot of time. We sat outside. We just talked about Hoboken, and the streets there are still cobblestone. So my kids, my students, as you could see, they had them wearing masks. We were the only schools open. The Hoboken schools were the only schools open. All the surrounding schools were closed, were remote, not closed. They were remote. So yeah, this is one of my. That whole area, up there on Castle Point. I mean, it's beautiful, and it's also somewhere where we would sneak in because it was quiet and dark, and your parents wouldn't catch you whatever you were doing that wasn't what you were supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Oh, what's really great, so great that you get to impart that experience, the experience you had growing up with this new generation of children in the same place. You know what I mean? That's a really beautiful thing. I like that a lot.
They love it. They're so interested in it.
Yeah,
they're so interested in it. And I really am hoping like for it to turnkey and they continue to want to grow, their roots here. And and I talk a lot about like Hoboken, back during the time of the war was called Little Bremen, right? Because the German ships came here and then the war broke out. And so a lot of German people lived here. So we had a lot of German, like Gruby's was like a German deli, that had every kind of rice pudding. And I would eat it by the bucket. So there were a lot, there were.
And fish cakes. I like the fish cakes.
It was, German. I mean, remember Helmer's, right? Which is now, I guess, Sorelina's, I think it's called.
Yeah.
But those, so there's a lot of history here in Hoboken. You don't even, I was born and raised here and walk these streets every day. And I still find random like World War II monuments or just other parts of history like the big things that I don't know what you call them, but they tied the ropes to the ship, right? Because we used to have the Stevens ship, which was a dorm on the waterfront, so they would tie the ropes to keep it there. And so now they moved those and they're painted black and they're in like by the park or by the waterfront. And I mean, I don't think unless somebody tells you the history of what they are, you just kind of walk past them. But they've been there for, forever. When Stevens used to be like a vacation place for people to come over from Manhattan,
And I know you've been doing a lot of walking lately and going around and seeing Hoboken, and I see you post a lot of pictures online. So
I took this photograph. This is just a view from the actual outside this museum here. And if you go on my Instagram, it's all Hoboken. I took this picture also from my house. And I did take it. This was taken during COVID, and you can see because it's the middle of the day and there were no people out. And then when I took my students down to the waterfront for the last walking field trip, they were painting this. So my students got to see how this actually came about. So, yeah, this was a pier where we would, one day somebody said, if you don't be quiet, a bunch of buddies we were hanging out. And, I'll throw you in the water. And I was like, really? Go ahead, throw me in the water. And he just came over, picked me up, and threw me in the water. So, I came out of the water bleeding from scrapes of barnacles because I had to hold on to the, there were some good times down on the waterfront.
And the water smelled a lot differently when we were kids than it does now. It was definitely different.
Yeah. My father-in-law was the body double for Marlon Brando on all the waterfront. He was a prize fighter. They called him Cowboy Lucignano. So lot of history here in Hoboken. Just could not beat growing up here. And I'm out every day. And I love it.
Well, one of the things you mentioned on the waterfront, whenever I watch the movie, all I really care about is going to see the scenes in Elysian Park.
The park.
And seeing the fence that's still there. It was there during that movie. It's there when we grew up. We hung out looking through that
and
that
OLG
fence.
Church is there.
And it's still there now.
Church Square Park.
So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, it's been so much fun hanging out with you, Rosanna, again.
Been a blast.
It really has. It really has.
It's been a privilege.
It's
really nice to relive it all over again.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's one of the really beautiful things about Hoboken is the consistency and the friendships like ours, being so consistent has been one of the things that I still love about town. So it's great to see you.
Love you,
You're
Mark.
the best. Love you too, Rosanna.
Thanks.
All right. So next week we have our host. I'm not sure who's hosting, but Lyle Heisen will be the guest next week. And the week after that is another old Hoboken friend of mine, Stuart Chirichella.
Yes, Stewie.
I don't know Lyle, but I would say, but I do know Stewie. I wouldn't miss that one.
I wouldn't either.
It should be a lot of fun. So Thursdays at 7, make this your stop. We'd like to thank Mel Kiernan for his generosity. He was a longtime Hoboken resident who was able to make a donation to the museum in his will to make some of this possible.
Beautiful.
And also thanks to the New Jersey Historical Commission for granting us some funds to upgrade our video equipment here at the museum. And thanks to the New Jersey Council for the Humanities for their support through the years. And of course, lots of individual donors who give at the museum's highest level of financial support. A hearty thanks to all the people who are members of the Shipyard Circle. And if you're not a member of the museum yet, go online, hobokenmuseum.org, and join. It's a really great organization. And of course, as always, we want to thank the Applied Development Company for their generous support through the years. The Applied companies have provided the space that we're sitting in right now, the space that houses the museum, and also their archives. So thank you to the Applied companies. And of course, you can come right now. Well, not right now because the museum is closed, but you can come this week and see this really beautiful exhibit about Washington Street that my friend Rand put together. It's just beautiful. And it's history of Washington Street, our main street. Lots of pictures and memorabilia and other events. And so please come see the Washington Street exhibit. And then in the upper gallery, where we're sitting right now, is a fantastic display of circus art by Karen Gersh. She's one of the circus people who trained right here in Hoboken for a while. So you can come by and hear some more about that. And of course, don't forget, if you'd like to watch this episode, if you'd like to watch one of the other episodes that have been from the past year, you can do it on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search for the Hoboken Historical Museum and subscribe. It's a great thing. You can see all the videos. So thanks to everyone from us here at the Hoboken Historical Museum. Remember, become a member. Stop by and see the exhibits, 1301 Hudson Street. Explore our website, and we even have a great gift shop here. So thanks again, Rosanna. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.